The storm outside didn't care that Lily Rivera was heartbroken. The wind howled like it carried her sorrow, tossing her umbrella inside out as she stood outside the Grand Halcyon Hotel. Soaked through her thin cardigan, her fingers trembled not from the cold, but from what she had just witnessed only 30 minutes earlier. Her carefully planned anniversary surprise had unraveled in seconds. She'd left work early, picked up Mark's favorite cupcakes from his childhood bakery, and headed to his apartment with the kind of smile that only love could sculpt. But love wasn't what she found. She never knocked. She didn't need to. The door was already cracked open. Mark's laughter echoed inside, along with a woman's soft giggle. Lily's heart stopped when she saw two wine glasses on the coffee table and a pair of high heels she didn't recognize. Beside the couch, she didn't speak, didn't cry. She simply backed away, turned around and walked. Not home, not to a friend, just away. Her phone buzzed endlessly in her pocket, probably Clara, maybe even Mark, but she didn't reach for it. Her legs carried her through the city like they had their own destination in mind, which is how she found herself here, standing beneath the grand awning of Manhattan's most luxurious hotel, dripping rain onto its polished marble floors. "Can I help you, miss?" asked the receptionist, a woman with kind eyes and an elegant uniform. I think I need a room," Lily said, her voice soft, almost as if she was afraid to disturb the world any further. "We're quite full tonight," the woman replied, scanning the screen. "But one of our penthouse guests had to leave early due to an emergency. It's a large suite, far above your requested range. But given the circumstances, I'll take it," Lily whispered, without asking the price. It didn't matter. She just needed a place to not feel anything, to not think, to not remember the past 5 years she had given to someone who had already moved on. With the key card in hand and her soaked suitcase squeaking against the marble, she boarded the gold-trimmed elevator and rode it to the top floor. When the doors opened, silence greeted her. The hallway was dimly lit, wrapped in luxury. Her room, no. Someone else's room waited at the end of the corridor. She pressed the card to the door. It clicked. Lily stepped inside. It was dark, but warm. The faint scent of cedarwood filled the air, calming. She didn't even notice the tailored suit jacket on the chair, or the faint creak of the shower through the walls. Her thoughts were heavy, her eyes heavier. Without even switching on a light, she let her bag drop and sank into the plush bed, curling beneath the covers like a child hiding from a nightmare. But this wasn't a nightmare. This was her real life. And sleep, the only mercy she'd known all day, found her. The door to the bathroom opened 10 minutes later. A tall man stepped out, towel draped around his neck, rubbing his hair. He paused, stared. There, in the bed of his penthouse suite, a woman was sleeping soundly. He blinked. She had no idea she was in the wrong room, and he had no idea. She'd soon turn his world upside down. The first thing Lily felt was warmth, a kind of comforting stillness that wrapped around her body and almost convinced her that the pain was a dream. But then she turned slightly and heard a sound, a breath, not her own. Her eyes flew open. The ceiling above her wasn't hers. The sheets smelled of expensive fabric softener, and the pillows were far too plush. Then she felt a presence right beside her. She turned her head slowly, cautiously, and her heart nearly stopped. A man, sleeping, shirtless, broad-shouldered, a shadow of stubble along his jaw. His chest rose and fell with deep, even breaths. Lily bolted upright with a gasp. The man stirred, eyes blinking open. Confusion flashed across his face as he sat up slowly, his voice groggy but calm. "You're not housekeeping," he said, staring at her like he was trying to place her existence. She grabbed the edge of the duvet and pulled it tightly around herself. This isn't my room. I'm sorry. I must have." "Oh my God." He rubbed his eyes and looked around, then let out a half laugh. "Did you sleep here all night?" "I didn't mean to," she whispered, trying to piece it together. "I thought it was my room. I was given this key card at the front desk. I just needed somewhere to breathe. I didn't even see anyone when I came in." Silence stretched between them like a tightrope. Then the man leaned forward, studying her with curious, gentle eyes. "You were crying," he said, almost as a question, reading the puffiness around her eyes. something happened. Lily opened her mouth, but no words came out. What could she say? That she walked in on her boyfriend with another woman and sleepwalked into a billionaire's suite. Without realizing it, the absurdity made her want to laugh and cry at the same time. He noticed her trembling hands. "You're not in trouble," he said. "But let me guess, you just needed to disappear for a while." She nodded, unable to hold back the truth. "I didn't plan this, I swear. I wasn't even thinking straight." His tone shifted, slightly gentle, understanding. "You're safe now. I'm Nicholas." She blinked. "Nicholas?" "What?" He smiled. "Coleman, Nicholas Coleman." Her throat went dry. That name. The same name printed on the elevator's penthouse plaque. The CEO of Coleman Holdings, one of the youngest billionaires in the country. She had accidentally slept in his bed. "I really should go," she said quickly, slipping out of bed, trying to gather her things without looking at him. But her suitcase was still by the door, and her jacket was soaked and useless. Nicholas stood, not rushing her. "I'll have them bring you some breakfast before you leave. You look like you haven't eaten." "I don't need, everyone needs breakfast," he interrupted, walking to the phone and dialing. "Especially after a heartbreak." That word lingered in the air like smoke. He said it gently, without asking, as if he already knew. She didn't speak. She didn't argue. She just stood there, silently watching this stranger offer her more kindness in 5 minutes than her boyfriend had in 5 years. She didn't know it yet, but the wrong room had just opened the right door. The clinking of silverware and the faint hum of jazz music filled the private breakfast lounge Nicholas had requested just for her. Lily sat at a corner table, staring down at the plate of warm croissants and fresh berries, unsure of how her life had managed to spiral and pivot in such a short span of time. Hours ago, she was trembling in betrayal. Now, she was sipping coffee across the hall from a man whose net worth probably exceeded the GDP of small countries. And yet, he hadn't asked her for anything. No explanations, no apologies, just space and food and silence that didn't feel empty. Nicholas had disappeared. After ordering breakfast, telling her to take her time and promising someone would check in with her if she needed anything, she hadn't expected to see him again. CEOs didn't have time for broken-hearted strangers who stumbled into their penthouse suites. So when the door opened and he returned, now dressed in a crisp charcoal suit, no tie, sleeves rolled just above his wrists, Lily's heart jumped for reasons she didn't quite understand. He walked over with calm assurance, as if this strange situation didn't faze him at all. "You stayed," he said softly. "I almost didn't," she replied, glancing down at her hands. "But the food smelled too good to leave." A small smile played at his lips. "Then I'm glad I ordered extra." She looked up at him properly now. There was something behind his confidence, something quieter, deeper, a sadness he wore well, like a coat he'd long gotten used to. "I'm not usually this dramatic," she admitted, pushing a piece of her hair behind her ear. "You walked into a stranger's room and fell asleep next to him," he said lightly. "I'd say that's more brave than dramatic." Lily laughed for the first time in what felt like days. "Brave or foolish?" He tilted his head thoughtfully. "Depends on what you needed, more escape or answers." She hesitated, then looked at him. "You always talk like that, in riddles," he grinned. "Only when I meet someone interesting enough to deserve more than small talk." And there it was, that soft warmth again. He wasn't flirting. Not really. He was noticing her, seeing her pain without trying to fix it. That, somehow, felt more powerful than anything else. She took a deep breath. "I walked in on my boyfriend with someone else yesterday, and instead of screaming or breaking something, I left. Just walked out. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't go home." Nicholas's expression didn't change. He didn't pity her. He just nodded. "Pain doesn't always scream. Sometimes it walks quietly into a different life." A silence settled again. This one comforting. She studied him now. "What about you? Do you always let strangers sleep in your bed?" A faint chuckle escaped him, only once. "But to be fair, you look like you just fought a war. I figured waking you up would have done more harm than good." Lily shook her head, trying not to smile. "You're too calm about all this. I've seen worse, been through worse." His gaze shifted, briefly distant. "Trust me," She didn't press. Something about him told her that his life hadn't always been boardrooms and billion-dollar decisions. There was grief tucked in the lines of his eyes, hidden carefully beneath his polished exterior. "So what happens now?" she asked, fingers wrapping around her coffee cup. "Well, you could finish breakfast, then I can have someone drive you anywhere you want to go," he offered politely that she hesitated. Or, he said slowly, "you could stay another night, no obligations, no expectations, just a space, safe space." Her throat tightened. "Why?" she whispered. "Why? Are you being so kind to me?" He met her gaze directly. "Because once, someone did the same for me, and it changed everything." And just like that, something shifted in her heart. A stranger, a storm, a wrong key card, and now, an unexpected kindness that made her believe. Maybe the world hadn't turned completely against her. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning of something she never saw coming. The idea of staying another night in that sweetest sweet lingered in her mind like an unanswered question. Lily had told herself she'd only needed a moment to breathe, a single night to collect her shattered pieces. But the morning had brought something far more unexpected than rest. It had brought comfort, not from a friend or a familiar place, but from a man whose life couldn't have been more different from hers. And yet, he somehow understood. By the time she returned to the penthouse later that evening, after a long walk through the city and a quiet visit to her old apartment to gather her things, while Mark was out, the decision had been made. She wasn't going back. She didn't knock this time either. Her card still worked. The suite was dimly lit again, warm and quiet, and she felt herself exhale as she stepped inside. A single note waited on the coffee table. "Dinner's on the balcony. If you want company, I'm there. If not, the view is still yours." And she didn't know why her chest tightened reading it. Maybe because it didn't ask for anything. Maybe because it gave her a choice. She found him outside, seated at a long glass table with two-place settings and a quiet city view that stretched across the skyline like stars frozen in time. The sky above New York was deep navy now, clouds finally clearing. "You came back," he said without turning. "You left me food," she replied. Sitting opposite him, he lifted the silver lid from the covered plate in front of her. Pasta, freshly made, garlic bread, a small bowl of chopped basil. "You look like someone who forgot to eat lunch." She bit back a smile. "Are you always like this?" "Like what?" "Gentle, thoughtful, mysterious." He shrugged. "Only when someone walks into my life unexpectedly and reminds me I still have a heart." She went quiet, the wind catching a loose strand of her hair. "You said someone once gave you space when you needed it. What happened to you?" He looked at her, then really looked, and for a moment, Lily saw something break in his eyes. Not weakness, not sorrow, but honesty. "My wife passed away 3 years ago," he said simply. Her heart sank. She hadn't expected that. She was my best friend, my partner. She kept me grounded. After she died, I stopped letting people in. I threw myself into work. Isolation made sense. Control gave me something to grip when everything else was falling. Lily's eyes softened. "I'm sorry." He nodded once. "It took a long time for me to realize I wasn't healing. I was hiding." The wind blew gently between them. Her fingers tightened around her fork. Not because she pitied him, but because somehow they were mirroring each other. She was running. He had run. Different griefs, same ache. "Why did you come back tonight?" he asked suddenly, his tone softer now. She looked at him carefully. "Because I didn't want to go where I wasn't seen. And for some reason, you see me. You don't even know me, but you see through everything I've been trying to hide." Nicholas leaned forward, elbows on the table. "That's because I've been you. And maybe, just maybe, you're the first person in a long time who sees me, too." The city buzzed beneath them. But up here it was still, safe. She didn't know what this was between them. She wasn't ready to name it. But in a world where everything had broken, here was something unexplainably whole. And maybe, just maybe, it was meant to be. It had been 5 nights now. 5 quiet evenings that unfolded like pages in a book Lily never thought she'd read. One where her pain wasn't dismissed, where her silence was respected, and where the most powerful man she'd ever met sat across from her every night just Being there, no pressure, no expectations, just presence. But that night felt different. The sweet lights were dimmed lower than usual. The air was warmer. She'd just come from an impromptu interview for a job. Clara had helped her find something. In marketing. Something small, but it was the first time in days that Lily had worn something that wasn't wrinkled or borrowed. She had curled her hair and even put on a little lip gloss. She didn't know why she'd made the effort. Or maybe she did. Nicholas was already home when she returned. This time, he didn't leave a note. He stood near the window, sleeves rolled again, gazing out over the glowing skyline. His jacket was tossed over the sofa, and for the first time, he looked less like a billionaire and more like a man simply carrying too much weight in silence. Lily closed the door gently behind her. "Hey," he turned slowly, eyes sweeping over. Her something flickered behind them, subtle. "But there, you look different." She raised an eyebrow, amused. "Is that your way of saying I finally changed out of sweatpants?" He smiled. "No, I mean you look lighter." She paused. "Maybe because I remembered who I was today. I walked into an office and talked like someone who mattered, not as someone broken." He stepped closer. "You were never broken." She let the words sit between them, soft and dangerous. "I used to think healing had to look like strength," she said, walking toward the window beside him, like pretending I was okay, smiling when I wasn't. "But lately, I think healing might just be sitting in the quiet and letting someone see the mess without fixing it." Nicholas didn't speak at first. Then his voice came low. "I didn't invite you to stay because I felt sorry for you, Lily. I invited you because you walked into my life like a question I hadn't asked yet. And every night since, you've made the silence less unbearable." She turned to face him, her breath catching slightly. What are we doing, Nicholas?" He blinked, not in confusion, but in restraint, like he'd been asking himself the same thing every time she stepped into the room. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I do know that you make it easier to breathe. That when I see you sitting at that breakfast table, or wrapped in that ridiculous hotel robe, or laughing at something I said that wasn't even funny, something in me settles." Lily's chest rose and fell, slowly. "I don't want to be your distraction." "You're not," he said quickly, stepping closer. "You're the first thing in a long time that feels real." She looked away, eyes damp, afraid of what might happen if she looked too long. "I'm still healing," she whispered. "So am I," he said. And then, in a silence so thick it seemed to hush the entire city below them, Nicholas gently reached for her hand, not to pull her in, not to claim her, but just to hold it, to say, "I'm here." She didn't pull away. She didn't have to, because in that moment, with the city lights flickering around them and to tired hearts barely beginning to trust again, Lily realized something. She hadn't walked into the wrong room that night. She'd walked into the right beginning. The morning light broke through the glass walls of the penthouse like a quiet promise. Lily sat curled in the oversized chair near the balcony, wrapped in a thick blanket, a warm mug of tea cradled in her hands. She hadn't slept much, not because of nightmares or tears, but because something inside her was stirring, something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. For 6 days, she'd lived in borrowed peace. For 6 days, she'd shared moments with a man whose life couldn't have been further from hers, and yet somehow, their silences fit together like puzzle pieces. No declarations, no confessions. Just the subtle gravity of two people pulled toward each other when neither had been looking. But time didn't stop for the broken-hearted. Nicholas entered the room quietly, holding a file folder, dressed in another perfectly tailored suit. But his eyes softened the second they landed on her. "You're up early," he said. Setting the file down, she gave a faint smile. "Couldn't sleep." He walked over and sat across from her, resting his forearms on his knees. "Me neither." There was something different in the way he looked at her this morning. Not cautious, not polite. It was as if a decision had settled inside him. "I need to fly to London this afternoon," he said carefully. "Just for 2 days. Business. Board meeting I can't delay." Lily nodded, hiding the small ache that bloomed at the thought. "Of course. But before I go," he trailed off for a moment, searching her face. "I wanted to ask you something." As she looked up, "I know your life's in pieces, and I know I'm not part of your plan. But Lily, I don't want this to be temporary. I don't want you to vanish when this week ends." Her lips parted slightly. "Nicholas, I'm not asking you to decide now. I'm just telling you I want to see what this could become. I want to take it slowly, honestly, without pretending. We don't feel something." Her heart thudded, slow and deep. "I didn't expect you," she said quietly. "I didn't expect any of this. I thought I was running from something awful, not toward something good." He reached for her hand again, like he had the night before. This time, she reached back without hesitation. "I won't rush you," he said. "But if you choose to stay, not just here in this hotel, but in my life, I promise to build something that never makes you feel like you have to run again." Tears pressed against her lashes, but not from sadness, from the overwhelming feeling of being seen. Not as someone who needed saving, but as someone finally being invited to breathe. She smiled through them, small but sure. "I'm not ready to leave." Nicholas leaned in just enough for their foreheads to touch, his voice a breath. "Then stay, and we'll write something new, together." The city carried on below them. Phones rang, cars honked, deadlines loomed. But in that moment, nothing else mattered. Two strangers who found each other in the strangest way, one searching for escape, the other buried in silence, had discovered. The kind of connection that couldn't be planned, not a mistake, not a coincidence, but something rare and real, and just beginning.